Welcome. This is Tom Fedoric. I'm a senior guide at the Cathedral of St. John the Divine. My favorite part of being a guide is helping our visitors to discover the small details that they might otherwise miss. We'll be looking at one on this virtual tour. It's right here in the cathedral's central portal, the four horsemen of the apocalypse. They form the base of the sculpture of St. John. Even though they couldn't be more front and center, visitors sometimes overlook them. Let's start by taking a closer look at the entire work. The limestone sculpture of St. John is 8.5 feet tall. It is the work of John Angel, a British-American sculptor. It was dedicated in 1947. What do you think John is looking at? Not down at us, not outward at the city. No, he's gazing up to the heavens. He's experiencing the visions that he will write down with the pen and paper he holds in his hands.
Well, Halloween has always been one of my favorite holidays, and I guess really my favorite holiday. Ghosts and goblins and witches and all the traditional elements of Halloween really appealed to me in a big way.
John is the writer of Revelation, the final book of the Christian Bible. In the original Greek, Revelation's name is Apocalypse, which means unveiling. For centuries, Revelation has been a source of comfort to those who suffer from war, oppression, or injustice. John writes of the coming of a new heaven and a new earth, the New Jerusalem, where, in the words of Revelation, God will wipe away every tear, and death shall be no more. Neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain any more, for the former things are passed away. But John also writes about the time before the coming of the New Jerusalem, when the world is afflicted by wars, famines, plagues, and other horrors.
Really, zap people aggressively with those things. Don't just sort of apologize for yourselves as you're going down. No apologies. You are what you are.
These catastrophes are introduced by the small figures we see beneath the feet of St. John, the four horsemen of the apocalypse. What a contrast between these dynamic figures and the prophet who stands above them. John stands motionless, transfixed by his visions. The horsemen lunge forward with propulsive force. Their mission is urgent, as we can tell from the intensity of their facial expressions.
I had become an artist in residence up at the Cathedral of St. John the Divine, and was involved with a lot of events up there. And somewhere along the line, we got the idea of doing a Halloween thing. I think they had been playing old silent films during the summertime with the cathedral organist. And the thought of doing one of the old horror movies seemed like a great idea, but they wanted to sort of flesh it out. And I came on board for that.
Look how they grimly fix their gaze on the horizon. Their windblown hair signals velocity. At the same time, the hair streaming above suggests a sky heavy with the clouds of a gathering storm. The horses lower their heads, as horses do when they clear a jump. As we look up at them from below, they seem to be hurtling over a precipice. Where have the horsemen come from, and what is their mission? In a historical sense, they come from the Hebrew Bible, or Old Testament. Although Revelation is part of the New Testament, many scholars regard Revelation as a continuation of the prophetic tradition of the Hebrew Bible. The writer of Revelation was steeped in the writings of the prophets. About 2/3 of Revelation's 404 verses refer to one or another of the Hebrew prophets, and particularly to Ezekiel, Daniel, and the one we see here, Zechariah. Here we see Zechariah in Michelangelo's fresco for the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. Even though the book of Zechariah was written 500 years before Revelation, the two scriptures have many elements in common. Both prophets meet angels who guide them through a series of mysterious visions. John has a vision of 4 horsemen, Zechariah with 4 charioteers. Here we see Zechariah's vision in an engraving that Gustave Doré created for an 1866 edition of the Bible.
And that it has continued to be a real wonderful venue for all my Halloween critters.
Four is an important number in both the Hebrew prophets and Revelation. 4 is the number of the created world. Each of Zechariah's 4 chariots speed off to the 4 compass points. Each chariot is drawn by horses of different colors, white, red, black, dappled. As we'll see, Revelation's 4 horses are also of different colors. Zechariah's charioteers are the predecessors of Revelation's 4 horsemen, but Revelation adds an important feature. Zechariah does not name or describe his charioteers, but John makes each horseman an individual. Do you see how John Angel has differentiated one horseman from another?
I grew up in Vermont, in Middlebury, Vermont, and fall was always a very special kind of dramatic time of the year there. The color of the leaves was always so spectacular, and trick-or-treating was a wonderful thing to do in a community like that, going through the streets in the dark. They actually had a Halloween parade, so having the right costume was really important, and I made my first masks for this Halloween parade. It was just a very special time.
The first and fourth cry out as they ride. The second and third ride with jaws clenched. The fourth is bare-chested, the second wears armor. The first is clean-shaven, the others have facial hair. Each horseman inflicts a different misery on the world, symbolized by the object the horseman holds in his hand. The first horseman personifies conquest. Revelation describes him going forth, conquering and to conquer, riding a white horse, wearing a crown and holding an archer's bow. Here we see him on the left. He is wearing a coronet, a small crown, hard to see from the angle of this photo. He holds an archer's bow. We wonder, why a bow and not some other weapon? To understand the bow, it helps to have a little historical background. John wrote Revelation in the late 1st century. His first readers were members of the early Christian communities of the Eastern Roman Empire. At this time, Rome was the master of the entire Mediterranean, but to the east, on the plains of Iran, was the Parthian Empire. Parthians were fierce warriors renowned for their horsemanship and archery. Here, we see one executing the acrobatic maneuver known as the Parthian shot, as depicted on a 5th century bowl. One of the few wars the Romans ever lost had been with the Parthians. The Parthians were a potential threat to overrun the eastern frontier of the Roman Empire. The original readers of Revelation, living in the shadow of possible Parthian invasion would have understood full well why the Horseman of Conquest carries a bow.
The cathedral it's a great space. It is so high vaulted. Big puppets really can stretch out. All these creatures that I've made really feel at home there.
The second horseman personifies war. He wears armor and rides a red horse. Revelation says, he was permitted to take peace from the earth, so that men should slay one another, and he was given a great sword. Wars disrupt agriculture and trade. Food becomes scarce and expensive. It follows then that the third horseman is famine. He rides a black horse and holds scales for measuring out grain. As he appears, a voice cries out, "A quart of wheat for a denarius and 3 quarts of barley for a denarius." A denarius was a day's wage in the Roman Empire. At these prices, only the wealthy can eat, while the poor starve. Before we turn to the fourth horseman, let's revisit the colors of the horses, seen here in a modern window in the Cathedral of Clermont-Ferrand in the south of France. A white horse for conquest, red for war, black for famine, the same colors as in Zechariah. But for the fourth horseman, John abandons Zechariah's color scheme. The fourth horseman of Revelation rides what has traditionally been called a pale horse. But the Greek word that John uses, chloros, actually denotes a pale green color, as we see in this window. A sickly green, the color of decomposing flesh.
The architecture of it, is so kind of ancient. There are always the little dark corners here and there. I think that to have something as sort of bizarre and colorful as that happening in a church is something that really I think people hunger for it, actually.
For the fourth horseman is death. Behold a pale horse, and its rider was death, and Hades followed him. And they were given power over a fourth of the earth, to kill with sword, and with famine, and with pestilence, and by wild beasts of the earth. With these words, Revelation introduces the fourth horseman.
The audience has always been really responsive. I feel like they really want to, sometimes literally embrace these figures, but but also maybe figuratively as well. They really would like to play with them. The kind of joy and reinforcement it gives you that's new each time. There have been people who've been appalled by it, but if our Lord can't withstand a few silly little demons, give me a break.
The text does not associate any particular object with death. Nevertheless, artists through the centuries have put one thing or another into the fourth horseman's hand. Here we see images from the 14th, 15th, and 19th centuries where death holds a sword, a pitchfork, and a sickle. John Angel exercised his own artistic license when he sculpted the fourth horseman. Look at what he placed in death's hand. He created this work in the immediate aftermath of the Second World War. Millions of tons of bombs were dropped in that war.
They sentenced me to 20 years of boredom for trying to change the system from within. I'm coming now, I'm coming to reward them. Latin. Then we take Berlin.
Was die Attentäter betrifft, die in Berlin den Anschlag auf die deutsch-arabische Gesellschaft verübt haben, ist die Polizei einen Schritt weitergekommen. Der nach dem Anschlag auf die Klappe
They sentenced me to 20 years of boredom for trying to change the system from within. I'm coming now, I'm coming to reward them. First, we take Manhattan, then we take Berlin.
And here in slide 18, this is Bernini's canopy where the Pope sits. Now, underneath this, it's the representation of the Holy of Holies, blasphemously so. And in this representation, this would be in the Holy of Holies where the Ark of the Covenant would sit. And this is where the Pope blasphemously portrays himself to be sitting there in the Holy of Holies. And in this next slide, number 19, you can see the close-up of the pedestals that are underneath this twisted column that are there to represent Solomon's temple. And this thing is huge. It's several stories high. I mean, this thing is huge. And there on this pedestal at the bottom of these twisted columns, in slide 20 here, we have the 8 faces that are on the pedestals. And these 8 faces are faces of women that are giving birth, women in childbirth. And I believe the obvious symbolism here, this is just like Pope Joan bringing forth her child. I believe that this symbolism represents the birth that will come and of the final one that's going to sit underneath this canopy. And all of this symbolism and all of this scripture, it tells us a consistent story. Now, one more thing I want to read for you from a book entitled The Mysteries of Magic by Eliphas Levi. And this is kind of the grand crescendo. And he is the fella that did the wood carving of the Baphomet, which we showed you earlier. And he tells he was a Catholic priest that got thrown out of the Catholic Church. And you got to be pretty bad to get thrown out of the Catholic Church, but he was. And he was a black magician, and he wrote the textbooks on black magic. And in this book, he talks about when he was in Paris, there was this fella that came in there by the name of Eugene Ventris. And to make a long story short, he had his priest robes on that had a phallic symbol on his head, and he performed a miraculous communion. And he not only performed a miraculous communion, but he imparted to Eliphas Levi the ability to perform this. I'll just read a little bit here, just briefly. Okay. Where I want to read here. Okay. On page 456, it says, thousands of hosts appear on altars where there were none. Wine sparkles in empty chalices, and it is no delusion. It is a wine, a delicious wine. Celestial music is heard. The fragrance of another world diffuses itself, and finally, blood, true human blood, which doctors have examined, exudes and sometimes flows copiously from the host, leaving mysterious characters thereon. And he goes on for several pages talking about the occult miracles this guy did and how this blasphemous mass, and this is the Luciferian mass that I believe will be performed underneath this canopy in the final go-round. And this is something all the way back, before we even studied any of this out, back in 2001, I believe, Donna said she had a revelation from God. And always when someone says that, I'm going to try it, no matter who it is. But she said she believed that the Lord revealed to her that the final worship of the false prophet was going to be a miraculous Luciferian mass where the wine would turn to real blood and the flesh would turn to real meat. And on our website, our new website, which Don and David Yoder worked so hard on, we have pictures there on our website of this actually happened. It happened in the Vatican with John Paul. It happens regularly. And this is something that has happened for a long time. And Eliphas Levi and other occult masters that are in this Luciferian priesthood, they perform this. This has been going on for a long, long time.
I'm guided by a signal in the heavens. I'm guided by the birthmark on my skin. I'm guided by the beauty of our weapons. First, we take Manhattan. Then we take Berlin.
John Angel sculpted the four horsemen as human beings. I mention this obvious fact because not everyone who reads Revelation imagines them that way. Take a look at these pop culture images of the four horsemen as supernatural supervillains. John Angel might have taken this approach, but instead chose naturalism over theatricality. Look at their faces. Step into the coffee shop across the street from the cathedral, and you will see faces just like these. Ordinary human faces. For what the four horsemen represent does not originate from the world of the supernatural. War, oppression, and inequality are miseries that humanity inflicts upon itself.
Everything in the Bible is being fulfilled today. Revelation 17 and 18 reveals that there's no hope. You must come out of Babylon the Great. You must come out of the beast system. And that means the vast majority of Protestant churches also. They are no longer part of the Reformation. They're in apostasy. They're under the power of the Vatican. That includes Anglicanism, Baptism, Methodism, every ism. The Methodist Church is Romanized, Jesuitized, Illuminized, all under the power of Rome. Most of the Pentecostal churches are. So don't just think I'm talking about the Vatican, controlling governments and controlling all religions. No, it's a worldwide conspiracy. Worldwide. That's right. And the Muslims will be used to destroy and attack Israel, but obviously they will be under the power of Russia, Gog and Magog through the Eurasian Union. That's the truth. The Vatican will use Islam to be its sword of inquisition, bringing about the destruction of Rome, the destruction of Mecca, Medina, and even the Jerusalem mosques and the Dome of the Rock. We're about to enter the Great Tribulation, and we have to lift up our voice and expose this great Jesuit world conspiracy. And the true murderers are our presidents, they are our prime ministers, they are our leaders. Those that we think we elect into office, they are our enemy.
Just a few steps away from the Four Horsemen, you enter the cathedral. It is a place of peace, filled with soft light and radiant color.
We're here this evening at the Cathedral Church of St. John the Divine in New York City for the annual Halloween extravaganza. Around 3,000 people at each of 2 showings gather in this massive space for the event. Being the largest Gothic cathedral in the world, this is a great space for this show. Here's some pre-show entertainment. Then there's an old silent movie shown. Tonight is a 1922 classic, Nosferatu. It's accompanied by the great organ.
Like its medieval predecessors, the cathedral is made in the image of the New Jerusalem, and it has long been our cathedral's mission to make John's vision of the heavenly city an earthly reality. The gospel of justice, equality, and peace is central to St. John the Divine's many ministries and programs, in the hope that oppression, injustice, and war shall pass away and be no more. Thanks for listening. I hope you'll watch our other virtual tours, and if you can, visit us in person. And when you do, don't forget to look for the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse on our western facade.
Then the highlight of the evening, the March of the Ghouls. These are really great costumes and wonderful acting. It's accompanied by Tim Blumfield playing the great Aeolian Skinner organ.
They are the true murderers. They are the ones that are bringing destruction across the face of the earth.
He's come out of nowhere and we don't know who he is.
What do we know about him?
He's leading desperate people.
So this is a cult?
We don't know who he's associated with. He could be creating an army. Or he could be leading them to their death.
What are you doing in Syria?
Delivering a message.
A message from whom?
My father.
And who is your father?
We've lost it.
What do you mean?
He just disappears.
No one just disappears.
We all witnessed a miracle.
He saved my daughter's life.
You need to see this.
Bury it for as long as you can. He didn't just click his heels and end up here. He clearly had help.
You get around Syria, Israel,
Texas.
It's the nature of my work.
And what is that work?
God's work.
Who do you think he is?
You didn't see what I saw.
And if I did, would I be calling him the second coming?
How far will this new movement spread?
I'm going to find out everything about you.
This is bigger than what you can imagine.
What's heaven?
It's a peaceful place in the sky.
Are you going to heaven?
No.
Why not?
You gotta be a good person to go to heaven.
10 years ago today, the artificial intelligence created to protect us detonated a nuclear warhead in Los Angeles. For as long as AI is a threat, we will never stop hunting them. This is a fight for our very existence.
Whatever's in there, they're sure worried about someone getting in.
Yeah, they're getting out.
We're the same. We can't go to heaven because you're not good. And I'm not a person.
Did you locate the weapon?
Yeah, it's a kid. Seatbelts.
What do you want with the child? We are this close to winning the war.
Those are some highlights from this year's Halloween extravaganza at the Cathedral Church of St. John the Divine in New York City.
Execute her, or we go extinct.
They're coming to get me.
The elites are not like us. They look like us, they act like us, but they're not like us. They are fundamentally different. They think different, and most importantly, they have different wants and needs, different desires. But at the end of the day, I'm just presenting what I find. It does not mean I'm right. Go out and do your own research, form your own conclusions, and come to your own opinions. These are just the dots I connect. I'm just an armchair researcher.